guys, welcome back to Daddy Dimes Radio. Today we're going to be starting episode 22 off talking about the Christian McCaffrey trade.
Yeah, obviously one of the biggest trades in possibly the past 5 years is the most talented running backs heading to a talented team that's been struggling so far this year. What are your first thoughts as a 49ers fan on the CMC trade?
I think that it could turn out good this year, but if he gets injured again, it could mess up like the future trading away those draft picks.
Yeah, I agree. We got rid of a bunch of picks that were going to be next year because honestly, I don't think Jimmy G, obviously, but even Trey Lance, I don't think either of them are the long-term answer at quarterback. Which obviously we want to stick with Jimmy G this year and probably give Trey Lance one more shot next year. And honestly, I don't know when Christian McCaffrey's contract expires and he becomes a free agent, but with that injury risk, if he's a free agent in the next couple seasons and he's hurt for the majority of those, it is obviously going to be a massive bust and could honestly be a really big start for a Panthers rebuild, especially with some other Panthers on the trade blocks that we'll talk about in a minute. But more on the 49ers, like how McCaffrey's going to help their offense this year. I think he is going to fit in with Jimmy G's play style, being an accurate short passing game is definitely McCaffrey's game. And we definitely can't overreact too much to whatever he does against the Chiefs today because he's not going to know the playbook yet and they're not going to be using it much. They'll still be going with Jeff Wilson.
Yeah.
But I think it could open up some things for Debo and possibly help George Kittle get back to being a top 3 tight end in the National Football League. Any other thoughts from you?
I think if he doesn't get injured, he'll fit in with the offense and make them better for a few years, but eventually, and this is if he doesn't get injured, it's going to start falling apart and not have because you're going to not have many new players coming in to help stabilize it.
Well, and also we already had, of course he's hurt right now, but we already had a young and upcoming running back in Elijah Mitchell, where in the next couple of years, if we don't keep McCaffrey, we could still have Mitchell, but we probably won't be able to keep him because he's just too good to be a backup, and he's going to want out to get a starting role,
Yeah.
Though also I could see, honestly, in the future, Mitchell getting most of the carries and then McCaffrey being the pass-catching back. I do think this trade to the 49ers will decrease McCaffrey's role from what he was doing 2 or 3 years ago with Carolina.
Okay. So we're going to look at some other trade possibilities, starting off with DJ Moore.
So, yeah, another Panther. And now these 2 Panthers players we're going to be talking about, the Panthers are going to be asking for a lot, just like they did with McCaffrey. But obviously, McCaffrey's probably slightly more valuable than these guys, even though DJ Moore and Brian Burns are incredibly underrated. But there are a lot of teams in need of a wide receiver. But DJ Moore is still young, and personally, I don't think he'll get moved. Levi, what's a team that, if he were to be traded, you think he could go to?
I think he might go to a team like the Falcons or something. I don't know.
I mean,
I don't feel like he'll go to a big team.
Yeah, I don't think the Falcons want to give up their picks right now because they're still in a rebuild, even though they're tied for the lead in their division so far and are off to a nice start. But they also have, remember, Calvin Ridley, who's just suspended this year, Drake London, Kyle Pitts. So I don't necessarily think they need him. Honestly, I think the Falcons they can't give away their picks because they're going to need to get a quarterback. I don't think Mariota or Ritter are the long-term options. But the Falcons definitely need a wide receiver right now. But despite their winning, I don't think they're definitely not tanking, but I don't think they're playing to win this year. Brian Burns, on the other hand, I think is slightly more likely to be moved, even though they're going to be asking for a lot too. But he's one of the best up-and-coming DNs. And I think, what team could Brian Burns go to? I could see Burns possibly going to like the Seahawks, who are similar to the Falcons, where they're kind of in rebuild mode, and they likely wouldn't want to give up these picks, but not very many teams are. Um, and the Seahawks might want to start rebuilding that Legion of Boom. Obviously, right now they have like guys like Quandre Diggs, but their defensive line is much weaker than it's been in the past. And then we got Elijah Moore, who's the only one on this list. Well, actually, there's one more that's pretty much asked for a trade, but Elijah Moore is on a winning team, the Jets, 4-2, and he's asked for a trade because he wants a bigger role in an offense. And he, I think, will get traded, and I think he's going to go to the Packers. What are your thoughts on Elijah Moore?
Yeah, I could definitely see him going to the Packers, even though he is on the even though he is on the Jets, who are playing well this year. But I think he'd get a good role in the Packers.
Definitely.
And that'd probably be the best team for him.
And the Packers really need him as well. Then we got another DN, but this is kind of our first old player. Everyone else has been a younger player. We got Robert Quinn from Chicago, who I think will get traded. Definitely higher chance than Brian Burns. And I could see Robert Quinn possibly going to maybe honestly, the Ravens defensive line isn't too bad. I can see him going to maybe the Bengals. I don't know what kind of assets they have. I don't think they have too many picks to give up. But honestly, I think Robert Quinn's going to be cheaper than Burns. So I think he could go to the Bengals.
Yeah, I think, like you said, the Bengals, I don't know how many picks they have, but they probably don't have a lot of picks. But he's definitely not going to be they're not going to be seeking as much trade value for Robert Quinn as much as Brian Burns. So I think Bengals is probably the best possible team.
And the Bengals defense has been really solid this year, but they just need to pick up some more pieces to really push them to the next level, which honestly their biggest need is definitely, well, honestly, they got Hayden Hurst, so they probably don't need a tight end. So I think Robert Quinn's a good pick there. Then we got some running backs, starting with Antonio Gibson from the Commanders, where there's a lot of running back competition, and they're obviously a very bad team this year. Where do you think Gibson could possibly go?
I think Gibson, I honestly do not know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he'll get traded because obviously the top running back is already gone, and he's also competing with Cam Akers, who is another guy who's kind of asked for trade because he's not getting his role with Darnell Henderson getting the carries in the Rams. And I could see Cam Akers going to the Bills, where the Bills give some picks, but also possibly giving up one of their running backs like Devin Singletary or Zach Moss to be a really solid backup that could be used in the passing game for the Rams. And I think Cam Akers would help the Bills as a young running back who really just hasn't gotten his shot yet with injuries and competition in LA.
Next player, we're going to move on to the OBJ, even though he is a free agent, and a lot of rumors about the Chiefs signing him. What do you think about him?
Which I think the Chiefs are the most likely destination for him, but he hasn't been signed yet, and there was tons of rumors with the Bills, with the Ravens, who both could use them, especially the Ravens, though their title chances this year, even with OBJ, are nowhere near the Chiefs or Bills. But honestly, I think the Bills already beat the Chiefs this year without OBJ, and the Chiefs with OBJ, I don't know how much closer that puts them to beating the Bills. Probably beats them in this game, but I also think the Bills will score more the next time they play the Chiefs, just as this offense continues to get better and better, especially if they get a guy like Cam Akers.
Yeah, I personally don't think the Chiefs will sign him because I don't know how well he'd fit in with the offense we have right now.
It would definitely reduce the roles of Juju and MVS, who already really aren't getting that much targets for what we're paying them, and now we're gonna have to pay OBJ too. When honestly we could have just had Tyreek Hill still. That's what really doesn't make sense to me. If we get OBJ, we'll be paying Juju, MVS, and OBJ instead of just paying Tyreek Hill, who I personally think is overrated, but is better than all three of those guys.
Yeah.
And then we haven't talked about college football in a while, so we're going to get a quick recap and then get into some college football playoff stuff now, as we're pretty much halfway through the season already for college football, which is pretty crazy to think about. But yesterday, probably the best game of the day, Oklahoma State versus Texas. OSU escaped with a big win in a close game where they were down in the first half. And the Texas offense was very dominant in the first half, and they were really fun to watch. But then the OSU defense really stepped up in the second half, and Spencer Sanders continues to be one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12.
Next game, Clemson makes a comeback to beat Syracuse in a battle between both of those undefeated teams.
Yeah, honestly, Syracuse was up early and were looking to be the best team in the ACC if they came out of this game. But then Dabo Swinney benched DJ Uiagalelei, something like that, for a true freshman who took over and led Clemson to come back with something like 21 unanswered points. And then, unfortunately for our Wildcats, TCU came back to beat K-State last night in a top 20 Big 12 battle. Second game in a row, TCU has came back after being down big early in a top 20 Big 12 matchup with Oklahoma State last week.
Bama easily beats Mississippi State in a top 25 game, which is helping them bounce back from their Tennessee loss.
LSU handed Ole Miss their first loss in dominant fashion with a 45-20 victory. Definitely didn't see that one coming.
In a top 10 Pac-12 matchup, Oregon beats UCLA 45-30, handing them their first loss as well.
So yeah, last week Bama and USC lost their undefeated records, and this week UCLA and Ole Miss lose their reign. So the 6 remaining top 25 undefeated teams are Georgia, Ohio State, Tennessee, Michigan, Clemson, and TCU. So we got 2 SEC, 2 Big 10, 1 ACC, and 1 Big 12. No Pac-12, though we have 3 Pac-12 teams with just 1 loss. And then what are your college football playoff predictions? Who do you have at number 1 once the season's over? Who's going to have that number 1 seed?
I think the number 1 seed is going to be either Tennessee, Michigan, or Alabama.
So do you think those 3 teams will all be in the college football playoff?
Yes.
Then who's that 4th team, you think?
I'm going to say Clemson.
That's a good pick for who you had in there. So do you think in that case, I think that means you have Tennessee beating Georgia and Alabama beating Georgia?
Yes.
And then probably Bama versus Tennessee. Yeah, I think that's solid if Tennessee and Bama beat Georgia, which personally I think Georgia will beat both of them actually. And Bama won't even make the playoff this year. I think that Tennessee loss is really going to hurt them. So I think Georgia comes in at number 1 for me, undefeated SEC champions. Number 2, Ohio State, undefeated Big 10 champions. So you have Michigan like beating Ohio State and stuff.
Yeah.
I think Ohio State will beat them. So that'll obviously be a great game this year. The number 3, I think, is undefeated ACC champion Clemson. And then number 4 is really tough for me. I don't think it's going to be TCU, and I don't think it'll be Michigan. But for me, it's between Tennessee, who I think will have 1 loss, and Oregon, who I think will have their one loss to the best team, in my opinion, Georgia, and Pac-12 champions. So I think I'm going to give it to Oregon at the number 4. And then let's go ahead and get into NBA. Levi, what are your 6 Eastern Conference playoff predictions?
So at number 1, I have the Bucks. Number 2, the Hawks. Number 3, the Celtics. Number 4, the Nets. Number 5, the Heat. And then number 6, the Cavaliers.
And then what do you think could be a sleeper team that's not really super good right now in the Eastern, but could bounce up into those top 6? What's one team that you think could bounce?
I think the Hornets could.
All right. And then for my Western Conference, I think I got the Warriors at 1, Clippers at 2, Pelicans at 3, Nuggets at 4, Grizzlies at 5, and Timberwolves at 6. And my sleeper pick, obviously I don't have the Suns in there, who I think will definitely be in the play-in, but they're not really a sleeper because they're still such a good team. So my sleeper will probably be the Sacramento Kings. And then we got the MLB, ALCS, and the National League, NLCS. So right now, the Astros, did they win last night? They did. And the Phillies won 10-6 over the Padres. So currently, Phillies lead the series 3-1. Houston leads the Yankees 3-0 in that series. And obviously, it's first to 4 wins and the best of 7. So what are your thoughts on Phillies versus Padres? Do you think Phillies win it in one more game? Or do you think the Padres can come back and win 3 in a row? Or
I think the Padres are going to win one more game, then the Phillies are going to win. But then I think the Astros are going to beat the Yankees in the sweep.
Mm-hmm. I think the Padres, the next game should be at home for them, which should help. And then you think the Astros beat the Yankees in the sweep. I agree with that because Garrett Cole just lost the game for them. And now they got Nestor Cortez going in, who was an all-star as well this year. But if you lose with Garrett Cole 5-0, I mean, I think the Astros sweep them and then win the World Series. If it is Astros versus Phillies, you think Astros as well?
Yeah.
It'd be great to see the Phillies win. That'd be a great story. Kind of similar to the Nationals a couple years ago. But anyways, we got to go watch the NFL games. So we'll see you guys next time here on Daddy Dimes